Hi, parents, and any students who've been absent. I just want to go over what we have on Google Classroom and what students have been given and try to make sense of it in one video so you have some idea what your child should be doing or you should be doing to prepare effectively. Because there's a lot of things we know don't work, like sitting there and highlighting stuff or last minute searching on Spark Notes. These things aren't going to help with the kind of question you're going to get in the exam. So yeah, what we're looking at really for effective prep is looking at how it's one exam with three papers, not three different exams that have no relationship to each other. So we want to work in a way so that what we do is going to help us on all three papers. So all students should have some class notes, a resource on literary techniques, and a scaffold to work with. So the class notes are in their book. I've deliberately chosen book because I want students to be handwriting all term so that they're ready for an exam. If they haven't managed to keep them in some kind of format where they can access them, I really can't help at this point with 17-year-olds having a book, bringing it to class, and writing in it. So if that's an issue, I don't really know what to offer you. Maybe standard English isn't the place. Next is a resource on literary techniques. This isn't everything, but they've been given a paper copy of it and a copy up on Google Classroom. So for standard it looks like this. For advanced it looks very similar, just has some slightly different things. So we will have the technique on the left, and then it will have what this is doing, the effect it's having on the responder, why the composer may use it. So if you look at these anywhere, you should be able to just kind of get some keywords that you could use in your essay. So Silva uses the motif of Charlie thinking about books that he's read, and he repeats this throughout to make us notice it, to show its importance or how common it is, etc. So you should be able to get keywords and ideas from what's on the right to make a claim about what you've identified. So that's that resource, and we also have a scaffold for them, very similar between advanced and standard, and it looks like this. We have a kind of example question, but not what you definitely won't get this, but just an example question to work with. How to break it down into keywords, and then you get this a kind of scaffold for what should appear in all sections of the essay. And what I recommend students do is find keywords and what they need, quotes, everything, and just start filling this out and kind of planning what's going to go where. Doesn't need to be a perfect fit. This is year 11, but just build your argument not by starting it and writing a really long draft, but just by figuring out what you're going to put in the different parts. Now we've used this in class so students kind of get what each of these mean, but what you should see if you're checking in on them is that they have this with material over here. Okay, so the next thing they should do is use this for doing some timed writing. So just choose one section of what you're going to write in the essay and time yourself 2 minutes, etc. Whatever seems like a reasonable amount of time for what you're doing. If it's just say these 2 bits, then 1 minute, 2 minutes. But if it's getting into the meat of the essay here, then you might leave 3 or 4 minutes. It just depends, and start generous and start to get tougher as you go. So how do students use that? So I've just taken some stuff from the bottom of the essay scaffold here. For both advanced and standard, I've put a bit of an exemplar paragraph. So obviously you don't want to use this exactly, or even take all the quotes out of it, because that would put you up for plagiarism, but you can take 1 or 2 ideas. But basically it's just here as an example of how it all should fit together. So if I look at, say, one of the things I talk about here is this quote here, where there's a lot of the same pronoun starting the sentence, she, and they're all very short sentences. I've used that as some evidence. So if they've found evidence like that, what they want to do is just give themselves a very minimum scaffold with as few words as they can, set a timer, and then just make themselves write. Okay, so we're on this now. So that's kind of, what they're looking to do. Is just really quickly, I think that was about probably 40 seconds, but 2 minutes. Just try to use all these keywords as much as possible and do it as quickly as possible. It's just short, sharp bits of effort to try to get these things really embedded in their memory and rehearsed. And then as they go, they might take, say, all of these words, and they might reduce it down to just a few words, times 5. Sylvie does something 5 times in a row. What was that again? It was using the pronoun. Okay, what was the technique? Short sentences and pronouns. Why does this work? It showed that it's a very different scene for Charlie than what we've seen before. He really can't convey it very well, unlike other parts of the novel. It has a big effect on him. So that's what they're looking on doing, is just reducing it down to the point that they really don't require much of a prompt and a cue to write a lot, and just rehearse that again and again and again until they've got all sections of the essay pretty much down. So we'll do the same thing, say, for the intro. In our model up here, in this section, we've kind of written this on the idea that we need to do a bit of philosophizing and appreciate the book at the beginning in our intro. And what does it help us realize about the world? Okay, so we've got these keywords. Fiction kind of helps society escape, and it also allows us to hear the voices of people who have been silenced. And when we see other people's stories, we can reflect on our own flaws and see how we aren't perfect or could improve. So we take those, and then maybe we think about them and we go, okay, how can I boil these down? Maybe we can really just boil it down to empathy. Fiction's about all the different ways we build empathy, and the form of the novel and its coming of age kind of genre really helps it be accessible to people, and that helps us empathize because we're engaged in the story, and so we listen to other people's stories. We want to get it down to the point over timed writing and drafting that we really just have a very minimal skeleton essay plan where we've just got 1 or 2 ideas for this whole scaffold here, so that they can recreate that when they walk into the exam quite quickly, and very little in front of them in their planning paper will get them to the point they can write quite a lot quickly. So that's the idea with the essay. So we have 2 more papers to do. So does that mean 2 completely different bits of work? No, we really don't want that to be the case, because it is one exam and it is one unit they're being studied on. It's just 3 different ways they can demonstrate the same knowledge. So when we move on to the creative part, they want to maximize the amount of benefit they get from things they've memorized. So whatever we've done before, we want to use the same stuff in our creative as we have in our essay. So their creative should explore the same ideas you discuss in your essay and use techniques relevant to the quotes you've memorized for the essay. Okay, sorry, I'm just checking that we're actually still going here. So, previously I talked about how the pronoun she was repeated 5 times. Okay, so you need a story, you need a scenario. We've gone through this in class. It's all about the relationships between the characters and, how would they continue on after the novel, or how might you portray some extra part of a relationship or issue that occurs between characters in between events in the novel or wherever. But it's basically the same concerns, the same issues coming up, and the same characters. That's what you want to stick to. So write a very short story or just a plot outline. It just depends how you write best. Sometimes you can't just plot out an outline. You need to actually write it. It's up to you. Whatever you do, just get it out quickly. Then we want to go over it using the quotes and techniques we have up above in our scaffold, our prep sheet for our essay. We want to do similar things. So if we look at the use of she times 5, the fact that it starts 5 sentences in a row because Charlie's kind of upset by what he's hearing and he's trying to recount it and he's shocked. Well, maybe we could use it in a similar way. So the scenario we have here is, it's not a particularly good one, I've just come up with it for this, is that Jasper and Charlie, or if it's Atwood, it could be one of the other characters of Glenn or whoever it is. In this scenario, they've caught a bus together to the city. Boring, but whatever. But the ticket inspector treats one of the characters in a racist way. If it's Atwood, it could be something else. It could be about control and passivity and how you kind of controlled by the regime around you. It doesn't really matter. What's important is that we just take the same technique from our essay and we use it because we're going to have it in front of us. We've just written our essay, so it's a big resource in our exam as opposed to our memory, which is quite limited. If we look at our essay, we've got all these things we can copy and imitate to get the style of the writer. So we take what we had previously, and it's he stopped, he just stood there, he looked, blah, blah, blah. So we try to use our essay as a model for our creative by using similar types of techniques. Simple? Okay. And that's not everything you need to know for the creative, but it's going to be the biggest impact to think about how you can rehearse doing that. Okay, so we have the same thing for the reflection. If you've managed to follow the 6 steps up to here, all you need to do is combine 1 and 2 into a more conversational essay using first person. So it's just like your essay, except you say I a lot because you were the one who wrote your creative. So you go back and you find quotes from your short story and analyze them in the same way you did in the essay. And you should be using really the same kind of techniques and analysis because you've got them in front of you in your essay. So you're just using the same basic stuff, so repetition of pronouns and whatever else you've got in your essay. Okay, and then finally you want linking statements from your essay, which is where you kind of try to address the question and you brought in the big concepts, so patriarchy and totalitarianism in Atwood and parochialism and scapegoating in Jasper Jones. You want to have your story be about the same thing and you want to be able to analyze it in the same way and say, I was trying to get across a better understanding of why people scapegoat outsiders, etc. Okay, so it'll look just like your essay, except you'll now be talking about your own writing here. And you'll be doing the same kinds of analysis, except you'll be talking about your own writing. Okay, I hope that helps. It is one exam. It's all about the same understanding. It's not a kind of random, here's a creative in the same way previous HSCs used to have. Your story is meant to show us what you know about the author you have spent 9 weeks studying. Alrighty. Cheers.